Hey, we've got a great one keyed up for you in this episode. This is all about our brain health and what we can do to maintain it as we get older. Things that are being done to address one of the most dreaded conditions that we see as we age. And is there such a thing as type 3 diabetes? All that and more in this episode of the Health Links podcast presented by the Health Links family of services. Welcome. I'm your host, DJ Thatcher. Our mission here is to engage in conversations about, well, health and wellness so we're all better informed. We're joined today by two members from the South Carolina chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. We have with us Taylor Wilson and Briane Baynard. Taylor, Briane, welcome to the Health Links podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
So before we get into the brain itself and research and so forth, hey, tell us a bit about the Alzheimer's Association and what you do.
So the Alzheimer's Association is a large voluntary health organization that has a specific vision to use evidence-based models to essentially end Alzheimer's. We support families facing an Alzheimer's diagnosis. We provide education in communities. And we also are the largest nonprofit funder on the globe of Alzheimer's research. We have signature events that help us to fund Alzheimer's research and dementia research in 56 countries on 6 continents. We still haven't funded Antarctica, but I'm sure if we could figure out how to fund Antarctica, we would be down there with the penguins. But, we really are dedicated to providing care and support, increasing concern and awareness about this issue, working with advocates to be able to help inform our elected officials on what families need, and then also to really bring about change through research.
See, and Taylor, tell us about your role, by the way.
I am the Director of Government Affairs for the South Carolina chapter, which means that I work at the State House, the South Carolina State House, with our elected officials and also all of our state agencies that engage with families facing a dementia diagnosis. And then I also have the great pleasure of working with Congress on all of our SE delegation members up there. And then I am one of 2 of the regional research champions for Region 15, which is North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia.
Okay. So you're busy. My goodness.
I'm busy.
All right. Hey, Briane, how about you? What's your role?
Yeah, absolutely. I am Briane Baynard. I work at the Alzheimer's Association as the Walk to End Alzheimer's manager for Charleston, South Carolina, and Bluffton, South Carolina. So my role is getting those communities involved in our local Walk to End Alzheimer's.
Gotcha. Hey, so let's dive into the disease itself a bit. We often use the terms dementia and Alzheimer's sort of interchangeably, but I guess Alzheimer's really is the leading type of dementia. Is that correct?
That's right. So if you think of dementia as an umbrella term, or as I always say, think of it as just an umbrella. Umbrellas have different spikes that come off to create the umbrella. There are different types of dementia that come off of each spike. Dementia is an umbrella term that means anything that's going to be a cognitive change that affects your activities of daily living, your ability to take care of yourself for hygiene, your ability to feed yourself, your ability to process information, make decisions, that kind of stuff. Alzheimer's is the leading cause of dementia, but it's not the only cause. We have frontal temporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, Parkinson's-induced dementia, and many more. And in fact, that's why research is so important, because we're continuing to identify how these different types of dementia actually interact. We're studying now, researchers are finding that 30 to 50% of dementia cases are actually mixed dementia cases, which means that someone may have Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. Well, why that's so important is that if you are treating someone for one form of dementia and not treating them for the other, you're not going to notice the change. You're going to think the medicine or the treatment is not working. So we really have to make sure that we are getting precise with our diagnoses, and that's going to take more work.
Sure. Yeah, I know that June is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And so what are some of the things that you're doing there, Briane, for the month of June? Of course, I know you have the walk coming up later this year as well.
Yeah, so June is really like our kickoff point for Walk to End Alzheimer's. Typically, we have people that want to get involved, but they're like, hey, when is a good time to get involved? So my outreach very much begins in June to our teams, to our sponsors, to say, hey, it's a great time to get involved because it is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. So we are doing a lot of educational programs. We offer those to anyone, but we particularly pitch them to our sponsors to come in and have a conversation with their employees, their networks, to say, hey, these are the warning signs. These are resources that the Alzheimer's Association provides, and these are free. So that's the thing that we are working to bring awareness to, is that we have the information, we have the resources, and how people can access those.
Yeah, I like the term Brain Awareness Month. I guess a lot of people, at least with my medical background, a lot of people just assume that as you age, you're automatically going to be, set up for dementia. But isn't it like nearly 50% of all the cases are preventable with lifestyle changes and so forth? I'm not sure what the latest research is on that one, though.
So the Lancet Commission actually just updated their most recent research around prevention, which is risk reduction, and it's modifiable risk factors. And what we've learned is truly that brain health and heart health go hand in hand. So we know that everybody gets nervous about their heart, right? When you're talking about going and seeing somebody for your ticker, like you go to your cardiologist appointment, but how often are you seeing your neurologist? So it's really about making sure that those go hand in hand. So what the Lancet Commission report said was close to 45% of dementia cases could be prevented through 14 modifiable risk factors. And some of those risk factors are a little bit harder to avoid than others. Things like wildfire smoke, that we
had a lot of that lately.
But other ones aren't. Things like staying involved, making sure that you stay social, making sure you're working out your brain while you're working out your muscles. Social isolation is a huge problem for our seniors, especially in our rural communities. It is so important that we keep them engaged because socialization actually is a protective factor. So we know that we can prevent dementia cases in many cases where people change their lifestyles. But I always tell people it's never too late to start. And it's great because in June for Brain Awareness Month, there's also, we can come in and teach you about what those healthy habits look like and how you can, kind of put them into your daily living. So it's really an awesome opportunity to go and talk to these different organizations. And Brianna has all of the trainings and all of the great information to share with them.
Good. We see all these different awareness months and they're all terrific. And sometimes people say, well, yeah, I'm aware that it's a problem and maybe here's some money or a donation. But yeah, what can any one of us do to help to stave this off? Yeah, I said at the intro that this whole term of type 3 diabetes, which kind of, I think initially started off like in the nutritional community. Now it's being more generally accepted in the medical community as well. But I guess it's because we see in many of these patients, they have a chronically elevated blood sugar or blood glucose level. Is that correct?
So what we're seeing now is, and I have to say this because working with researchers, they're very clear about it. Diabetes is the term that means sweet urine, and that has nothing to do with this. It could be a glucose process. We're not going to say, so calling it diabetes is actually a misnomer because it's not about the pancreas. It's not about our system. It's specifically about glucose processing and metabolic changes in the brain. And so when we're talking about that, we have to be really careful because we don't want people to think that insulin is going to be the thing that changes this. But we are really actually starting to study the metabolic changes in the brain because toxic cascades begin when a protein malforms and it becomes sticky, right? So when you have a protein in your brain, it changes shape and all of a sudden now it's locked together with a bunch of these things and your brain is not getting rid of it, right? It's not getting rid of the toxins. Like your body does not get rid of toxins when your kidneys aren't working correctly or things like that. Well, what we have to do is we have to figure out why are those proteins misfolding to begin with? Is it a metabolic process? What causes that toxic cascade to begin? And so there are researchers that are spending a lot of time on the metabolic processes of the brain. The other thing that we want to make sure that we're talking about, though, is that there are other things that we're looking at, like gut microbiome. We're looking at things like sleep. We're looking at all of these different types of things that we know actually have an impact based on what research has come out of the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, which we hold every year. It's global. It's the largest in the world. One of the big ones is chronic stress. Chronic stress is a risk factor. We also know that things like systemic racism can be a factor. We know that African Americans are 2 to 3 times more likely to have dementia and be 7 times more likely to be diagnosed later in the disease. We know that women make up 2/3 of Alzheimer's diagnosis. So there are researchers who are studying, how does menopause affect it? How does preeclampsia and pregnancy affect it? So the real truth is that we are at a place where there are so many options on the board that it's really about getting rid of some and saying, nope, that has nothing to do with it. So we can start to zero in, because the brain is so complex. None of these diseases present the same. They also don't present the same in the same people. You know, my grandmother had dementia. She presents completely differently than the people that I know now who have dementia, you know? And so it's hard to diagnose. It's hard to communicate. And we know that it's going to take everyone looking at this as a community problem, a community issue, something that we have to end together for things to really change. And that's why Brianna and the walk is such an amazing opportunity for this, because without the walk, we don't have research. You know?
Well, yeah, it's exciting to hear the fact that there are so many things that potentially we can do to protect ourselves from Alzheimer's. It's not just in the genes. And so, Brianna, tell us a little bit about, when you go out and meet with people, some of those risk factors that you're helping them to reduce, and then tell us more about the walk as well, please.
I will say too, my understanding of Alzheimer's has really grown since being in my role. I think oftentimes, even personally, I've seen families not want to talk about the disease, that, I've heard, oh, he's tired, or, oh, he's having a bad day, or, oh, it's just, he's getting older. And I think that does our community and those diagnosed a disservice, because the sooner we're able to diagnose, the better the outcome for that person and their family. So I think being in my role, it's a very rewarding one to be able to have conversations with families that oftentimes will say, hey, I didn't know that these resources were available. I didn't know how to get in touch with someone. And now we have a lot of the people I work with most closely are our committee members. So we have a planning committee for the walk. And in Charleston, we have about 25 people on that planning committee. When we go around the table, each of them has a personal story. And now they're empowered and they're equipped to go out and have conversations with their family members, their friends, their colleagues. So hopefully, as we get closer to a cure, people have the information they need. So really an awesome time to be. Awesome might not be the best word, but a great time, a lot of hope currently. And an exciting time to be in our roles.
Yeah, that's what I mean. A lot of people just assume that this is going to happen and not much we can do about it. But as you've laid out here, certainly we can. What's your personal connection, Brianna? How did you get involved with the Alzheimer's Association?
Yeah, so I worked for a nonprofit previously and had a coworker who was in the role before me. And she reached out and said, hey, I really think that you would be a great fit for this role. And I'm like, well, I don't know what that looks like. How do I, how can I connect on something that I don't understand or don't have maybe the strongest connection to? But I think, just being in this role and seeing, wait, I do know people. Wait, I have been affected personally.
Are we seeing a higher incidence of dementia these days? It seems to me when I was younger, I mean, I can think of one elderly relative that probably had that, but now I know so many people. So are we seeing more of it, or are we just getting better at diagnosing it? I'm not sure which.
I think that there's a couple of kind of parts to that question. The first is we have an older population, and while dementia is not a normal part of aging is a risk factor for dementia. But aging is a risk factor for certain cancers. Aging is a risk factor for heart disease, But so it's not a normal part of aging, but it is a risk factor. So after the age of 65, your incidence goes up. So number one, we have an older population, a larger population, that baby boomers growing older, hitting after 65. The second thing is that people are living longer. We have people who live well into their 80s and 90s. And so when we have people who are living longer, we're starting to see more prevalence of the disease. And then the third thing is we actually are now able to identify what these symptoms are. So doctors and physician's assistants and nurse practitioners are able to identify this. The other thing that I think that's been really important is the Alzheimer's Association very early on went to try to reduce the stigma. Like Brianna says, we have this instance where people don't want to talk about he's tired, he doesn't. It's a fear, but now people are more likely to actually go to their doctor and say, I'm worried about my husband, I'm worried about my mother, I'm worried about these people. And now we have cognitive testing that can be done, and it's done at every Medicare annual wellness visit after the age of 60. So because we have better diagnostics, we have more informed healthcare, we have less stigma, and an older population, you're going to see those numbers rise. At the same time, we also have treatment. And that's something that we didn't have before. It was diagnosed by Dr. Alzheimer in 1906. And the only reason he was able to diagnose it was because the microscopes were just becoming powerful enough to look at brain cells.
I see. We'll get more into that in just a moment. I'm just wondering, though, it sounds great. Once you enter the healthcare system, they're pretty good at diagnosing this. But what about getting people there? What should we be looking for? Maybe even at an early age. I'm not sure what the earliest age is that we see or start to see some signs of Alzheimer's, but what should family members be watching for?
So the first thing I will say is I think that it's important for family members to recognize that 65 may be the risk factor, but we know people who have been diagnosed in their 30s and 40s with younger onset. So it's really watching individuals who have a change in their cognition. And it's not just memory. It's going to be things like personality changes, difficulty making decisions. You're going to see spatial reasoning become difficult. So you'll see them start to avoid dark tiles when they're walking because they're not sure if it's a hole or a dip. I always tell people that my grandmother was very strict about not cursing, and she started to use some language that was just, she taught me some things, and I was like, oh my. And that was one of our signs where we were like, wow, we are not taking her to a baseball game. She will get us tossed out, when you start to notice changes like that, or anything else really you're noticing, like hygiene is changing. You're noticing that they're losing a lot of weight or gaining a lot of weight. You're noticing that they're not taking their medicines correctly. Those are things that you're going to want to get them to the doctor. But if you have any doubts at any time, doctor first, be wrong. Doctor first, be wrong. But don't let it go because you don't want to have that difficult conversation, because early detection and early diagnosis is the doorway to access to treatment. After you are out of mild cognitive impairment or mild dementia, you can't get those treatments anymore. So the earlier the diagnosis, the better.
Good. All right. Makes a lot of sense. We'll talk more about the treatments in a moment. I know a lot of research is going on, and Brianna, you mentioned earlier about the walk, and a large part of the walk is not just to go out there and make people aware that there's Alzheimer's, but it's to collect the money and so forth to help fund this research. And so what's going on? What are some of the research projects or findings that are out there?
Yeah, we have a lot currently. I think Taylor can probably give a more accurate number, but I believe we have over 55 projects currently. I think over $2 million invested here locally in research at MUSC. And so we have the ADRC as well, which I know Taylor, I believe, has a lot more experience than I do. But the walk is able to raise the money to then be put into those projects locally and nationally.
Good. Hey, so you're doing two things. You're funding research. You're also getting that exercise you need to help stave off the disease too. So yeah, interesting.
So the Alzheimer's Association actually donated. We actually granted out $100 million last year, over $100 million, and that is because we have Walk. It is only because of Walk that we were able to give that much money out.
Wow.
When we think about, like, diagnosed in 1906, that's the first time we ever saw it. It took us until 2021 to get our first treatment. And it's because that's how long clinical trial research really takes, right?
Sure.
But since then, it's kind of gone on a sprint. And we have seen testing now for biomarkers that actually lets us know when someone has the disease. The FDA just approved its first ever blood biomarker. That is huge. That means that you can go get tested for dementia like you can go and get tested for heart disease, diabetes, anything like that. So that came from Walk. Wow. There is not a single signature event and I'm biased because I work for the Alzheimer's Association, but I don't think there's a single event where you can stand there and meet someone who is getting a treatment that was approved by the FDA because of the money you raised that funded that treatment's research.
Interesting.
We have that in Beaufort. We met the first person in South Carolina who ever received Leqembi. He's at the Walk. Wow. And you go, oh my gosh, we fundraised and asked our friends for $5 more. And Brianna called one more sponsor and like, oh my gosh, we're working so hard. And then all of a sudden he's there. It's in his veins.
It's a great feeling, I'm sure.
If I can add to that as well, I think Walk is, it's very tangible. So it's, you see your dollars at work on that day. So it is something that I think, to Taylor's point, is unlike really any other fundraiser that you can attend. And I think what also makes us different is we're a free to register event. So it's just, you sign up, it's free. There's no fundraising minimum. So it's really just we call it like a large support group. So you're coming there, you're meeting others and that are diagnosed, that are caregivers, that are just, it's just a really feel good day. And we also have one of the most, I think, impactful is our Promise Garden ceremony. So it's part of our opening ceremony. And we have 4 Promise Garden representatives. So they're holding these pinwheels that show their connection to the disease. So there's 4 pictures. And on Walk Day, we also bring out a white flower that signifies the first survivor. So just that moment there is, I think, what keeps people coming back, what keeps people fundraising, on top of seeing like, yes, the blue flower is receiving the Leqembi treatment and is here today. And just having that relationship, him and his wife are amazing. They are just awesome supporters, champions for our cause. And they're in Maui currently. So I think you see Leqembi, it's giving them time. It's giving them
for sure.
the opportunity they just saw their youngest son get married and they're on vacation. So just things that they probably did not think when receiving that diagnosis that they would be doing.
Before I forget, when is the Walk this year?
Charleston's Walk is on October 26th.
Okay. Yeah, they're taking place all over too. Is that correct?
We have over 600 nationwide that fall between September and November.
I see. And a certain distance, or how does that work?
Yes. So typically around 2 miles. Our Charleston Walk is a little bit longer, about 2.5 miles. And we'll start at the Joe Riley Stadium, walk downtown like the Citadel campus, and then back to the stadium.
Oh, great. Pretty area and pretty time of the year as well.
Always pretty walks. Always our Promise Garden flowers are always planted as we start on those walks. And I think that, something to mention is that you can go to alz.org/SC/walk. Okay. And you can find out where all of the walks are. We have 9 in the state. So if you can't get to Charleston, go to Beaufort. It's not that far, straight down 17, right? If you're going to be in Columbia that weekend, great. Come to the Columbia Walk. You don't have to walk where you live. The other thing is you can sign up day of. You can sign up.
Nice.
We'll register you there if you want to be a part of it. If you find out late, join us there. We fundraise even after the event is over. So once you get there, I cry at every Promise Garden ceremony, and I have to go to multiple walks across the state. So October is just a bunch of tissue. Like I'm like, I have hay fever, but no, it's really just emotions. But you can go to alz.org/SC/walk.
And we'll include that here, by the way. Sure.
Follow, if you have more family in Greenville, get them together and go to the Greenville Walk, because it really is a cathartic experience. It's a beautiful experience. And you get to meet with people who have been through this just like you have. And there's a different kind of camaraderie that comes out of walk, and
Sure.
recognizing that you're actually making an impact when you see that promise garden ceremony, when a caregiver can stand up there and say, I'm a caregiver and my support group saved my life.
Wow.
When you can,
Powerful.
yeah, it's powerful. My
Yeah.
color changed from caregiver to in honor of, because my grandmother passed away during walk season.
Oh my.
That's 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 a really poignant moment to share with
Mhm.
people that I'm still here. Just
Wow.
because she passed, just because my flower color changed, doesn't mean that I'm not still going to be in the fight. And so those kind of moments are really incredibly powerful, and how I think we have become one of the strongest volunteer opportunities that you can be a part of if you're interested in
Wow.
fundraising.
It's amazing. Well done. Let's touch for a few moments on the treatment aspect as well. One thing too, you mentioned the blood test, and I know you mentioned that cognitive testing begins at age 60. Is the blood test something that's automatic, or is that something that we really have to lobby for when we go to the doctor, especially if we're maybe under 60?
So I think that right now, because the FDA has just approved it, you're going to
Mhm.
see a delay in rollout time. There's also going
Okay.
to be a delay in payer systems covering it, right? We have to have conversations with the payer systems, CMS. We're going to have conversations with Medicaid. You know how labs always end up costing you a little bit more than your copay anyway. So
Sure.
you always have to be prepared for that. There's going to be a delay, but the delay is not going to be not having one. And that's
Okay.
the biggest thing. The only other biomarker test we had before this was a cerebral spinal fluid test. That's
Mhm.
a spinal tap.
You're right. Good
I
luck
would,
with that, right?
I would much rather have a blood draw
Yeah.
than a spinal tap to determine if I had dementia. And so
Sure.
I think that, guidelines are going to come out. You're going to see the Alzheimer's Association spending a lot of time with the payer systems, because that's part of our advocacy, is
Mhm.
to go in and say, we really need you to cover this. You're going to spend more money on the back end than the front end if we can actually get them treatment.
Mhm.
That's part of our advocacy as well. So you'll see the Alzheimer's Association taking a front row seat, maybe even an engineer in the train seat to drive this forward. So be patient, but continue to ask your doctor about it,
Sure.
because
Mhm.
you may get those. It may be, oh, we don't have it right now. We don't have it right now. Third time you ask, oh, we just started doing this. Let's add it to your labs. So
Nice.
just stay aware and stay the squeaky wheel, because your brain health and advocating for your brain health is paramount to your quality of life moving forward.
Sure, sure. So once a person is diagnosed, what treatments are available? It sounds like there's a relatively narrow window before people get too advanced. Is that right? So tell us about some of those treatments.
There's a very narrow window. Right
Yeah.
now we have Leqembi and
Mhm.
Kasuna. And those are their generic names are lecanemab and donanemab.
Okay.
They are two amyloid plaque reducing infusion therapies. So it looks
Okay.
a lot like chemotherapy. You
Mhm.
go to an infusion center, you sit through it, and you get it. And so what it essentially does is, the best way that I can kind of describe it is, it's like when your windshield is dirty and you use your windshield wiper to wipe away, it kind of wipes out that amyloid plaque that's sticking in your brain that's causing the neurons not to fire.
Interesting. Okay. Good
So
analogy. Yeah.
you have to have amyloid in order to be eligible, which means you
Okay.
have to have Alzheimer's. It is not available for someone who has frontal temporal dementia. It doesn't work for somebody with Lewy body. It doesn't work for somebody with vascular dementia.
Okay.
Those are all important things to note. So you need a precise diagnosis, which means that you have to be able to prove you have amyloid plaque in your brain. And you also have the other hallmarks, tau tangles, and also neurocortical atrophy, or brain cell death,
Okay.
brain shrinking. The second thing is that you have to find a neurologist that's going to do all of the proper imaging to make sure that you can actually get it. It is paid for through Medicare. CMS
Mhm.
pays for it, or pays for part of it. But you also have to be able to withstand the testing around ARIA, which is brain bleed risk. And so
Okay.
when you think about it like this, if you have ivy growing in a bush and you reach in and you pull out all the ivy, you're going to pull out some of the bush too, right?
Mhm.
That's sort of what you're doing when you're removing the amyloid plaque, right? It's sticky and it's sticking in
Yeah.
your brain tissue, so it may cause brain bleeds. And
Wow.
so when you're looking at that, you have to be very careful. People who are more at risk for brain bleeds are not going to be eligible for this treatment either. So
Okay.
small window of time that you can be treated, small population of people who are not going to have an issue with ARIA, small population of people who are going to be able to, afford it with the payee system.
Sure.
Small population of people who are going to be able to find a neurologist that's going to be able to get them treatment within the window of their cognitive, disease progression.
Okay.
So this is not our end. This is our beginning. And that is what I always tell people when we start talking about this treatment. Yes, let's celebrate. But this is our starting pistol. This is not our finish line, because we have so far to go. We have other dementias that need treatment. We have 145 different clinical trials in the pipeline right now that are not about amyloid at all. They are about cell bioenergetics. They are about tau. They are about so many other things, right? We are at the beginning of the shift.
Mm-hmm.
The walk needs to have even more people attend, even more fundraisers join in. Be part of the success. We aren't at the success yet. Wow. We need more people running the marathon. Okay. And so that's what I would say to anyone who's like, oh, well, you got a treatment. We have a very small range treatment. We want to end this thing. When my grandmother passed away, in her casket, I put the sash I had worn to DC to advocate and a promise that I would not stop until we kicked this thing off this planet.
Wow. Good for you.
The only way we can do that is if we all walk together. Wow. And so that's why I am a huge fan of, if you can't get to the walk in your town, find the next one over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because it's so important.
Well, Taylor, we can hear your passion and certainly the knowledge that you have. And you're also a master of analogies, by the way, too. That's terrific. Tacking on to what Taylor said with the in-depth information and so forth, Taylor has this passion and also the scientific knowledge. When you're meeting with individuals or with families or groups, how do you kind of decipher all that technical data to people, make them understand it, and also create that kind of cause to action?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I will always lead any committee meeting or meeting that I'm having with an individual with. I am not a researcher. I know just enough probably to be dangerous, but not much more than that. So I think the thing that makes our team unique and work really well is we tend to do things like this where we tag team. Mm-hmm. So I will always pull in someone with more knowledge. We have a lot of opportunities for Taylor to join on to our calls. Taylor's done a lot of these research presentations for our committee members and also for just those in the public. We also have a group of program managers who lead our community education volunteers. So we are always kind of pulling other people in to fill in the gaps. So I could talk about walk all day and love talking about walk, but the technical side and the research side does go above my head a little bit.
I gotcha. So for people who want to reach out to you and they want to have you maybe come in and talk to their group or whoever it might be, how do they reach you? And is it in person, virtual, or either?
Yeah, either or. I would say, our information is on the website. Our email addresses are available. Our phone numbers are on there as well. And so there's always that opportunity to reach out to request an educational program. Our website is also a really good tool. It has all of this information in easy to read and understand material. So I would say, yeah, absolutely.
So we also have a 24/7 helpline, 1-800-272-3900. If you can't get in touch with someone at the Alzheimer's Association in the South Carolina chapter, that is the number to call. They are truly 24/7. They speak 200 languages.
Wow.
I did not even know that there were 200 languages to learn. Yeah. My Duolingo is really, really not holding up for me. But they will get in touch with us. They follow up with the chapter for every call. So if you have a question about walk, you have a question about research, you have a question about presentations, and you can't get us, 1-800-272-3900. Also, if you're a caregiver in the middle of the night who needs some support, use that number. I use that number at 3:00 in the morning when my grandmother I called her my Pop-Tart, because at 3:00 in the morning, she would pop up and want to do stuff. I use that number to help me get her back to bed. I mean, it's an incredible resource, and it's one that, again, Walk makes possible.
Wow.
And it's just incredible. Everything that Walk does, like it is the number one thing that keeps our progress moving. And when momentum speeds up, Walk speeds up too. And Brianna and the Walk teams and all of them around the United States do not let you down. Like, it is incredible.
That's great. Well, Brianna, a final word is yours. So once again, maybe that call to action for people to join the Walk, or anything else as we finish here.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say thank you to Taylor and for you for bringing awareness to our Walk to End Alzheimer's. I'm really excited for this year because of the momentum that we have. So I would encourage you to check out our website to get involved in Walk this year on October 26th in Charleston.
Terrific. Well, from the South Carolina chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, Taylor Wilson, Briane Baynard, thank you so much for joining us here on the Health Links podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.